Anyway, let's talk about youth and the political participation of the youth generally. Youth is more than often presented and represented actually as passive, homogeneous group of people, a layer of our society which is the least interested in the processes important for its sustainability and durability. But we mustn't talk about the youth as a homogeneous group that just doesn't really care about anything beside the partying, drinking, having fun, and ignoring all the problems that they come across. We actually have to talk about this age group, but we actually have to understand that this age group, meaning a group of people between 15 and 30, let's say, is a diverse, very nuanced, and crucial group for all the changes that we want to see in our society. In this episode of YouthSquad, we will talk about the role of youth in important social and political processes, and more importantly, how to involve the youth and the youngsters that are harder to reach. I want to welcome my guest, Anica, an activist and a young person herself, who is involved in the processes that aim to change the things that young people around her don't particularly like. Welcome.
Hi.
It's really nice to have you here. And before we actually dive in this episode's topic, let's address the main stereotype that is usually linked with young people. We are mainly described as lethargic. We're mainly seen as, passive, just generally not interested group of people. But I see in front of me a young person who is willing to get her hands dirty, so to say, in order to change the things she doesn't like and she wants to change. So, quick question before we begin. Why did you become an activist?
It was pretty hard for me, and I was living in a small town, and as a young person here, as a young person there, it was really hard for me to get noticed and for my peers to get noticed by the local government. And I started volunteering when I was 7, and then in Red Cross actually, and that's when I found out that I do want to do some bigger things than be just volunteer who is doing only workshops or educational trainings and being a trainer or peer educator. And that's when I decided that it is really a good thing and good idea to get active in my local society, and I wanted to do better things, to be better version of myself also, but to do better things because personally I have younger sister who I don't want to live in a society where the young people are actually getting looked from above.
Mm-hmm. Nice. I mean, this is very motivational. And to begin from the year of 7, that's really something. How do you, what was your thought process behind it? Were you oh, okay, Red Cross, I see someone who's there, or someone who's in Red Cross, and then you were like, yeah, I'm gonna do that too. I think I'm gonna be cool, but I do that. Or were you I really want to change this, I don't know, old person that's living just, next my door. And those things, did you see the problem and then wanted to change, or was it something else that affected you?
Honestly, I was only 7, and I live in a town where everyone knows everyone, and I had a crush on this guy, and he was in Red Cross, and that's how I decided to volunteer in Red Cross, so I can spend time with him. But then I really fell in love with volunteering.
No,
I fell out of love with him, but for volunteering and everything, I have a really big space in my heart and love that I'm feeling for volunteering and helping others. It was not that easy for me. I was only 7 to notice a problem and to be like, I want to solve this, because I didn't even know what were the problems. But when I got older, after a lot of education and everything, I started to notice problems, different kinds of problems, and I wanted to solve them. Then I started volunteering in a non-governmental organization, and that's how I actually became an activist.
Mm-hmm. Nice. I mean, yeah, this story has a huge plot, and I didn't know this about you, so it was really interesting to listen to this. But do you think, beside like the fact that, you know, like seeing someone you like and then wanted to join the organization, do you feel like it's easy to become an activist? Like, do you feel like this process of, you know, like it's a really great thing that you actually had an organization where you can go to? I mean, whatever reason it was, like whether it be a guy or a problem that you see in your local community, like it's awesome that you had an organization that you can call up and see like what your chances are to become a volunteer or an activist. So do you think it's easy to become an activist today?
Well, personally, I had an organization where I could become a volunteer, not activist. I mean, from Red Cross, I got pretty much educated about different topics, and some topics are the topics that are still my interest. But I became activist through the organization, different organization, and
like there are some differences in your opinion between the volunteers and the activists.
Yeah, definitely there are differences between volunteers and activists, but such as, for example, in Red Cross, you're a volunteer, and for example, you have different programs. One of the programs are human trafficking, prevention of human trafficking, where you educate young people and your peers about that topic. And for example, you have first aid, where also you educate them, but also you have different programs that can help you help older people, for example, where you go visit their homes and help them with different kinds of packages, for example. But as an activist in an organization, I had different responsibilities, and it was kind of hard to get into that role because it was still new to me, and I was only 13 at the time, and the organization didn't even exist before that. I was the first volunteer actually there, because my Serbian teacher in primary school actually formed the organization. And she asked me, and I was like, yeah, sure, I will come. But I still didn't have an idea what was it like. And the motivation for joining and being activist, becoming activist or volunteer, everyone has different motivation for that. But the thing that is actually hard is to get motivated to stay in that role. For example, it was pretty much hard for me because I went to different high school in different city, and I didn't have enough time to spend within the organization and high school. So it was really hard for me to stay motivated to keep on doing this.
Balance it out, like
yeah,
to actually have enough time for your school chores as well, as much as, you know, the activism and volunteering as well.
Yeah, but that was one story. I loved what I was doing, so I kind of found some time. But a lot of people do not find themselves in activism, and that's totally fine. But not everyone is active in our society, and that's really good, and not everyone is passive actually, which is the stereotype that is surrounding young people, that we are passive and that we do not do anything.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've heard it a million times, you know, like especially from, you know, the generations that actually have a direct contact with young people. They tend to have this misconception about us that we just, you know, really just party and sleep and eat and repeat, you know, like nothing else in between. Well, where in fact I believe that the youngsters today are surrounded by these thoughts about like the changes that they want to do, whether it be about themselves, whether it be the environment that they live in, you know, like I believe that it's a constant struggle to find peace within the reality that we live in. And I feel like it's really important to recognize that, because youngsters are, I mean, like the youth actually has the most energy out of all age groups to actually change something. And I believe it's important to recognize that in the system and in the process of the change making. So, but like, obviously, I mean, yeah, these things is actually a must to, like, it's a must to recognize volunteerism and activism as, you know, a practice, as a mechanism to actually reach young people and to actually put them in the political processes and to ask them about the questions that it's concerning them. It's concerning us as much as the next person. What's going to happen with our city? What's going to happen with our local municipality or our state as a whole? So, what do you think should happen in order for other social groups to recognize the youth as the change makers, as change, like these people who will bring the change?
It is really hard question because every day the situation in every country is changing, and one day you can get up and wake up to news that young people are amazing and we are respecting young people and everything else. But the other day, the only thing that only you can see young people in, for example, bad connotation for example in media. And I have honestly I am changing my mind about this all the time, because sometimes I think that the researchers are the most important part, where you can get the most young people from a country, question them actually how they want to be recognized, and how to ask them on their opinion, and that you are not the only one who can make that decision. But sometimes, and when you think about it, it is a really hard and long process, for example, and it could not be that possible to do it. For example, I would love what I would love more is that young people are represented in media in the good way, because everyone is surrounded by media, and everyone is consuming some kind of content. It doesn't matter if it is on YouTube, TikTok, or local newspapers. Everyone is consuming something, and I think that by putting young people in a highlight and in the spot, it can actually do some change. And also we need to change our mindsets, because
this will somehow change our mindsets. I mean, media does actually affect how we think and the way we see things around us, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because now we have two opinions about young people. We have one opinion, as you mentioned, that is you only drink, you only party, you're really passive. And the other opinion is, for example, if you want to change something, you're just a kid, you're not allowed to do that, and there is no balance between those two opinions, and there should be. Okay, we have young people who are partying, we have young people who are active, and that is completely fine. Young people, for example, from 15 to 30 years old are really different group. And we have high schoolers, we have college students, and we have some young people who are employed, but some young people who are not employed. But we also have a lot of different marginalized groups there that are unfortunately not recognized enough.
Yeah, I mean, so as that's exactly what I meant when I said that we must not see the young people as a homogeneous group, because it's important to understand those nuances in order to approach them better, and to understand that they're coming from different realities, even though they somehow all fall into this umbrella term youngsters. Like, they still have different realities, different challenges, different needs from day-to-day basis. Like, they have different things that they want to see on their screen, on their plate, in their mind, presented as opportunities, and so on and so on. But I mean, that's definitely yeah. I mean, I'm so glad that you underlined it, because I believe that that's really important to highlight. So, what do you think? Like, how does a government reach a young person from a rural area who's also, I don't know, a queer, or is not like identifying with the youngsters in the rural area, or has like even more challenges growing up there than the other kids in their area?
For example, when we're talking about the government and them reaching different groups of young people, on paper, everything is perfect, actually. For example, if you go to school and in any city, and you see their plan of working and the different plans and documents that they have, and documents that will fight against the discrimination and what will be done after that. Everything is written so well, and if you're only reading it, you will think, oh my God, we have an amazing, for example, school system. But in reality, it's not like that. Unfortunately, marginalized groups, different kinds of marginalized groups, are not recognized enough by the government, and I mean by the laws also. They are, and but it's not
being implemented.
Yeah, exactly, and that is the sad truth about this, because this only leaves young people with one mindset: I am not respected here, I am not enough, and I am not equal with other people, and I want to leave this, either a city or a country. So it is a really big thing that leaves bad consequences. Yes.
But do you think, like, for example, that you mentioned that you started your activism, you started it within an NGO. Do you think the cooperation between the government and the state officials with the NGOs would be kind of a bridge towards the young people? Because I believe, where I come from and what I see around myself, NGOs actually do a pretty decent job. Like, civil sector actually does the job that the state should do, and like they actually reach the people, not just for the quotas, and not just because, to tick the box and say that, yeah, we had like 5 people from rural areas in our workshop, but actually reach the rural area people and, like talk to them, ask them for the needs and stuff. So like that data can be used by the state officials to form and organize the laws and the plans and the, like systems and mechanisms that can actually be implemented in order to help the youngsters around us. Do you agree with that, and what is your opinion about it?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, I had a chance to meet and talk with a lot of different young people from different NGOs, and it was an amazing experience, because you actually see the process they are going through and changes they are making. Sometimes it doesn't seem like it's a big change, but trust me, everything is a big change, actually.
Any change is a big change.
Yeah, and what I wanted to say is that unfortunately media threw a bad picture for NGOs, and that's maybe why some young people in rural area, for example, I'm speaking from my experience, actually, do not have a good opinion on NGOs, and we need extra time to get their respect and to get recognized by them, to slowly get them to trust us, and after that we can change things. But sometimes there is that pre-step that we need to take and
break the stigma before you start actually doing something.
Yeah, and that is maybe one of the biggest problems that I had in my activism career. Career. But it can be done, because a lot of people, it must be done, yeah, because my opinion is that it is supposed to be a bridge, but it is a one-way bridge, definitely.
For now, I mean,
for now, yeah.
Or do you think, like, if it were to be implemented, it would be a one-way bridge, or like right now, and it has to change?
Right now, definitely, NGOs are a bridge towards the government from young people, but it is only the one way, because I do not actually see a lot of changes from the government. But as I said, sometimes the little things are the ones that matter the most. So actually every change is a big change, yeah. But I really hope so that one day I will see perfect a cooperation between NGO and government, and between young people in a country where everyone will have a right to say their own mind, and where actually young people would be seen as such group, young people, not kids, not older young people, unemployed students only, just young people who are, as we said and mentioned, different people, diverse, and
So, I mean, you mentioned the political will and actually the fact that it doesn't exist, this NGO bridge, which we mentioned, like it's a one-way street because there is actually no political will on the other side of it. So do you think that this is the main reason that young people are usually, staying away from politics, staying away from all those things that actually can bring change? And because it is the truth. You mentioned that this trust that exists even between NGOs and the youngsters, like NGOs which are really approachable, really youth friendly, in a sense how they communicate with them. And still there is this huge mistrust and distrust and this huge misconception about what they represent. And this distance between those two factors actually becomes even bigger and wider between the youngsters and the politicians and political figures and politics in general. But do you think that this is the main reason that actually stands behind the fact that young people do not engage in politics and social issues?
Yeah, definitely. But also they're not informed enough about the politics. I mean, I heard a lot of time this excuse. I am apolitical. I would not like to engage in this and do that. Because when we're talking about politics, young people only see a picture where they have to be in political party and be active in that way. And that is not the same as being active. And you sometimes need to remind them that politics is also when they want their neighborhood to be clean, and it is not clean. And that is politics, but they do not see it as politics. And they decide to stay out of this because they don't want to be part of some party, part of some team. And that is also one of the reasons they stay passive in their society. One of the reasons is, sometimes someone doesn't want to be active.
That's completely fine, but let's make it for the right reason. I mean, like if you don't want to be active, that's fine, but let's give you all the information that you need and then make an informed decision about it rather than, not being active because you don't know what it represents.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you're looking at me now and you know me from my 20th birthday. When I was 13, I was really a shy girl who didn't speak much, and I was always in a corner. I didn't want to do anything. I mean, I wanted to do, but I didn't want I was scared to do anything else. So I was always this shy, stay back.
Can't imagine.
Girl. Exactly, yeah. And that is the thing that actually changed me. And sometimes they need that kind of personal motivation. But some people are not interested. Some people do not want to waste their time on that way. That is completely fine, but the thinking there is always someone who is going to be active. I don't need to be that.
Someone else can do it.
Yeah, that is definitely not the right sentence, because imagine everyone thinking that no one would be active.
Yeah,
and that's also the thing that needs to be changed.
For sure. And I think that most of the people I'm surrounded with, and I believe that I live in my own bubble, but even then it is really hard to change the conception, like this thought that politics is a dirty word. And that, like, for example, I remember I was also a person who actually had this thought a while ago. I remember when my favorite organization, like civil organization that was actually like, doing the concrete work in the city that I was living in at the time, they announced that they're going to run for the next elections, that they're going to actually become a political party. And I remember, damn, like, that's such a waste, because I was thinking, now once they enter the politics, that's it. They're not going to do anything, right anymore. They're not going to do the work that they've been doing so far. And I caught myself, like, actually a friend called me out on this, and she said, like, well, why do you think that? I mean, isn't it better that some organizations like that actually do the work, become politically active in that sense, and also change our perception about the politics and political parties? And I was like, Oh yeah, that makes sense because that's a way to go. I mean, if we believe that the good things should be kept away from the politics in order not to make them dirty or make them bad and go to waste, then we're not gonna have good things in the politics. And that's the same thing with young people. If you from the rural area don't want to get active because someone else will do it, you can't expect to be represented in that sense, because if everyone thought that way, as you said, no one would be active today. I think this is a very fruitful conversation, and I mean, obviously it is very level and layered, and the challenges that young people face, as we mentioned, are different and diverse. But do you think it's, for example, easier to become an activist if you're coming from a bigger city? Because you're coming from a rural area. Do you think you have more opportunities if you're coming from a bigger city than a small community?
You definitely have more opportunities, but is it easier? I have no idea, because
fair enough.
I mean, honestly, I have no idea, because more opportunities do not actually mean that it's easier to become an activist. It means that there are more people that you need to have on your team, but also there are more people that sometimes, activism is not a fight, it's not a war, but sometimes you need to be the one, and you want to be the one who, not the one who takes the spotlight, but the one leading, for example, some initiative. And definitely it's harder to be recognized as a leader in a group where there is 25 leaders, and it definitely is hard to work in a team where 25 leaders are that strong.
A leader.
Yeah, but I have no idea, is it easier? Definitely to reach it out, it is easier, but to become an activist, I have no idea. I think that actually becoming an activist in a rural area is not that easy, but staying an activist in rural area is easier because you have personal motivation that way. Because you are kind of
the inside. It's internal factors that move you.
Yeah, and you're closer to your society in rural areas, and that is a really good motivation to keep going. But for example, if you are living in a big city, and there are different types of opportunities and different segments where you can be an activist, you can, for example, go to organization or to some non-formal group. But are you going to stay there? That is like a tricky question, because
you don't feel connected to the community as you would in a rural area.
Yeah.
Or in a smaller community, not necessarily a rural.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I mean, I that's a really interesting perspective, because I wasn't thinking about it that way. I always thought, because I'm also coming from a smaller town, and I was always thinking, definitely, once I move to a bigger city, this is gonna be all, possible. Those kids have everything and stuff, but having the opportunity doesn't necessarily mean that you're gonna use them. And if we don't spread the awareness about why it's important to get active, it doesn't matter how many opportunities you actually have, it's still gonna be the same. And I definitely agree that, it depends in, I guess, in what kind of community you actually live in. But I definitely agree that connecting with the community has to be the way towards raising awareness about, humanitarian works that you as a young person can do. It doesn't matter if you're going to clean the riverside or help a grandma cross the street, or you're going to actually, start organizing youth advisory club or something like that, to actually talk to the decision makers in your local community, and actually, write as many papers as you have to and initiatives and sign them and ask for and petitions, and ask for signatures. It's still a humanitarian work, and it's still a form of solidarity with your community, which I find is really important. How important is to include, to have the perspectives of young people from different challenges, from different backgrounds, and with different challenges within the policy making process? Because as I mentioned, you have to get involved. Obviously, you have to keep your foot in the door. You have to actually make yourself present in order to be seen. but how important it is for politicians and for political figures and for decision makers to actually have in mind the perspectives of young people, like how important it is for this thought process to come from them rather from the youth.
That process is not a hard process, actually. All you need is to listen and to organize everything as it should be. If you want to involve different groups of young people, you can do that if you want. Unfortunately, sometimes it requires more time, and it requires more talking and one more paper in the document. And that's why, unfortunately, some people do not want to include young people from different groups. And if we want...
it's more work.
Yeah, I had a chance, and I am still doing that. I am working with marginalized groups, and I know that some people always say it is more work and it is a bigger responsibility. It is not. It is not. I have been working like this for 5 years, and I am pretty fine with thinking about different kinds of groups of young people and how to involve them in different processes. For example, if I want to change, for example, some kind of workshops in my organization, and I want to do something new, I am not going to sit by myself and think, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
I'm going to ask participants of those workshops. But I'm not going to ask only 3 participants and be like, yeah, that's enough. I have different groups that I'm going to ask. I have girls, maybe they want a different program only for them. I have young people who are from even more rural area than my town, and I'm going definitely to ask them, because one time, and that is actually a sentence that it's always on my mind, is when I asked young people from more rural area than my town, what do you need in your town? And like the options, what they need was like theater, like movies, library, and all they said was we need like some chairs and we need something where we can hang out, because we do not have anything and any place where we can hang out. Only some local shop where there are only old people hanging out, and we only can hang out if we're playing sports. We're not all into sports, and we do not have a place where we want to hang out. And I was like, oh, I didn't think about that, because I was like proposing, do you need theater? Do you need movies?
Yeah.
Do you need library? Do
you were stuck in your own way, your own sense of privilege, so to say. I mean, it's not being privileged, but in a sense...
Yeah, definitely. When I am comparing myself to them, I'm definitely privileged. Even though I had movies once in 3 months in my town, I was definitely having a privilege because I had that. But also I had the place where I can hang out with my peers and my friends, and they only could do that in their local school. And when the school is over, they didn't have a place where to hang out, especially, for example, when it's winter. And that's the sentence that I always have in mind when I want to actually ask people about what they want and what they need, and to actually think that there will be 100 of different opinions, and that is totally fine. You cannot always answer to all of the 100 opinions in the right way and be like, yeah, this will be done, but you can work and you can progress in that and make it happen someday. But you need first of all, you need to map actually in your community all the groups of if we're talking about young people, all the groups of young people. Your community doesn't have to be like a local community, like like a city or a town, your community, if you're active in high school, your community is students of that high school. And you need to think actually about those students and where they are from, which kind of groups you have there.
Interests, music interests, like anything, basically.
Basically anything. Actually, the small details here are the things that is the most important, because that way you can actually find out different kinds of things, and you can actually help them be recognized. But also you need to break the stigma down and be like, when you want to involve them, for example, if we're talking about marginalized groups of national minorities, and you want to ask them what they want, you ask them what they want. And when, for example, it's a workshop or something like that, it is important to include them with other groups, not exclude them, because that way you didn't do actually anything. You only discriminated them by separating them in different groups. And you need to remember that they are definitely, when we want to separate them and map different groups that we have, for example, 10 groups in our community. But when we want to have an activity or something, those 10 groups are one group where everyone is young person, and everyone gets the same treatment and the same respect from you.
Yeah, I mean, you really underline some quite important things and topics, and like some factors that you actually have to take into consideration when you're working with young people. And I really, really hope that some decision maker will listen to this podcast and actually take some piece of advice from you, because I believe that, we have to learn from the people like you that are actually working with these people, because you, from the practices and from the activities that you do all the time, you can draw the most, conclusions from it, and actually put them to some good use by implementing them in your further activities. And this is how you gradually develop and become better, by doing and learning from the feedback that you receive, because it's really important to actually also get the feedback after you ask them what they want. Try to implement it to the best of your knowledge and power, and sources and resources. And then after that, ask the people you're working with what they thought about it. Ask for feedback, because that's how you learn and improve from there. Thank you, Anica. This was extremely interesting conversation for me. I really hope that our listeners think the same. I really find this topic interesting, and I would really love to go into it a bit deeper with you, and I really hope that we get the chance to do that. I really hope that our listeners enjoyed this episode of Youth Squad. Thank you.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for listening to Youth Squad. My name is Maria. The Youth Squad podcast series is recorded under a small-scale project in the field of youth called Voicehood of Youth, which will cover 4 topics: human rights, gender equality, European multiculturalism, inclusion and diversity, and active participation. The project is implemented within the Erasmus Plus program and is financed by the Swedish National Agency. Thank you for tuning in, and make sure you stay tuned for another episode.